If he ever singles you up, if he's ever stupid enough, I'ma be the first one calling you baby. If he ain't holding you tight,
You good, Fonzie? You need push-ups?
Dude, I don't know why my legs are like
crazy.
killing me right now.
All
And I
right.
have not worked out. So that's why it's a mystery. Why do my legs hurt?
I see.
And I have a soccer final today, so they better not be hurting in about 5 hours.
We got you. All right. Let's do this.
Alrighty, I'm ready.
All right. What's up, guys? Happy Wednesday.
Let's do
Welcome
this.
to Content is Profit pre-Podfest edition.
Ooh,
Oh,
I'm just gonna
baby.
say, I tamed the hair.
I know.
That was crazy.
Today, we had a daily task in our board, and it was like, Fonzie, you need to go get a haircut.
I'm getting the
Like,
haircut
commit.
after this.
Commit.
actually. Right after this, I'm heading out and cleaning myself up.
You're going to look like a regular human being. That's good.
Yeah, you invented a new word in today's meeting. You're like, you're gonna look all snazzy. I was like,
That's perfect. That added to the
hashtag snazzy.
hashtag snazzy.
So I'm gonna be looking all snazzy for Podfest.
Bring it to the BIZBROS, list of words.
Yeah. We just
So
that's
many
what we
more.
do. We just
Invent our
it's
language.
called positioning. Positioning.
Hey, baby.
Just you're making up words so people just relate them to you all the time.
That's right, snazzy boy.
But now we just need to get people
To say
saying
it.
those words.
I know. Now the marketing campaigns commence.
Yeah. All right, let's do this. You ready?
I am so excited. Let's do this.
One second.
You good? Well, you told me
Gotta put
to
the
be ready.
intro and
we good?
We've got some
Hey,
fresh
I'm
new young
Luis.
talent
And this is
doing some
Luis.
things that I
Welcome
know
to the
you
Content
haven't
is
heard
Profit
before.
podcast.
in here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a damn good time, baby. Let's
The goal
go.
of this podcast is simple: to entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit.
Woo, baby.
I was about to say entertain again.
Entertain.
Yeah, literally when I was about to say the word, I was like, please don't say entertain. Please don't say.
We're just talking about creating our own words, and here you are creating your own words.
Here we are.
Entertain.
That's right. Hashtag
Snazzy.
positioning.
Hashtag snazzy.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Today we are going to be talking about how to get in the right money mindset. I met this person not so long ago, and I am intrigued on what she has to say
Yeah.
about all this.
I met her not so long ago too.
like
10 minutes ago. And honestly,
You know.
I'm impressed. I was like, dude, she came out with like full on confidence, talking about microphones, kind of like looking a certain way. And I was like,
That's
she
our
is her
person.
type of guest. She is her type of guest.
I know. Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, so today's guest is one of those people that when you meet, you feel right at home. We both met in an accountability group. More on that a little bit later. I was practicing what we preach, and we sent a quick message to connect, and the rest is history.
She currently runs a very successful 7-figure business that she built from scratch. She will be sharing more on that during the show. She is currently passionate about education, mentorship, and structures around the right way to think about money.
That's right. She also has a beautiful family with 3 kiddos. One of them is Mateo, just like my kiddo, and is doing some amazing community work supporting the Sparkle Foundation, Cool Kicks for Kids, and Save a Warrior. But by far, my favorite thing is that she will be launching her show, Speaking of Money, very soon. Let's
go. Please welcome the Money Mama, a true business inspiration and future podcaster,
Jana Mannina.
Wow. That was good. I sound awesome.
You sound incredible.
because you are awesome.
And you look even better, Jana.
Thanks, my friends. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. You look like you just came from the beach.
I did. God, how did you know? I'm very
Look
busy
at that.
beaching and podcasting today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You went out and relaxed, get that podcasting mindset right. And it's like, let's get to it.
I'm here for it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited to have you here. Obviously, we met in this online community a couple months ago, and I feel like we synced like right off the bat. And I think like personalities right attracting in this way, and we always share with people like, hey, just send a message, right? If you feel like there's gonna be somewhat of a benefit, or like how can we help each other, right? Like in many ways, like go send that message. You never know where that goes. And you know, I think it's been a couple of months, and it's been a fun couple of months. But I'm very interested. Like, do you want to share a little bit, because this is something that impacted me, right? Like we've talked a little bit about the money mindset, like in our conversations, and you came almost from like nothing, right? And you've been able to build this very, very successful business, and you're about to like expand your reach and help and serve so many more people. So I'm very curious, because we haven't really had like a straight money talk on the show, and this is why I'm like very interested. So can you share a little bit like where you're coming from, and like to give a little bit of reference?
Yeah. So, like you said, I didn't come from a lot, and I had enough, but I didn't have a lot of extra. And as I was kind of coming up the pike, I was trying really hard to figure out what it takes. What would it take? And for many years, it never even occurred to me what could be possible for me, because I think I limited myself in so many ways, right? Like for people like me, for people where I come from, we do this. This is our top level. And then I met somebody who was like, "Oh, what are you talking about? You could totally do this." And I was like, not me. Yes, you. And then suddenly all of the things became possible. And then those moments of going from this mindset of I have these limits to I have no limits, that's when things really took off for me and in my career and in what my next steps were going to be. And I think staying in that growth space has been the part that's been pinnacle to my development.
Can you share a little bit about like the this and the this, right? Like for people that are not listening, right? They can't
Oh,
see
yeah.
like the amounts, right? Like, and you know,
Yeah.
I have my own personal amount that I can share that story to, where my eyes were like, whoa, like the possibilities out there, right? And I feel like a lot of people have not had that moment. So like, what was that for you? Like, can you share a little bit of the amounts that they were presented to you? Like,
yeah. So I think, I remember being like 17, 18 years old and having a job, and I got this raise at my job, and I was making $15 an hour. So I'm getting out of high school, I'm making $15 an hour, and I was crushing it compared to my friends. So this is the late 90s. And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, wait, if I work 40 hours a week and then I work a little bit of overtime, I'm going to get like $1,000 a paycheck. And that for me felt enormous. So I went into adulthood thinking like, what do I want to do? What's that going to look like? I knew I wanted to be able to travel and buy things I wanted, but I didn't really have an idea of like investing or anything along those lines. It was just, I just want to be able to do the things I want to do. So I decided I'm going to be a nurse. That's going to be my job. I'm going to make $50 an hour, and I will have absolutely made it. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a nurse, and I'm going to crush it in that. And then I start nursing school, and I'm in nursing school, and I start my clinical rotations, and I hate it. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to make $50 an hour. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I will wipe all the butts for $50 an hour because I'm going to be rich. And so this whole funny thing happens, and I'm like, I'm going down this path, and this is the plan. And suddenly I go on this trip to Mexico. I meet this guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a real estate broker." And we started talking about like how much money people can make. And he was saying like, "Oh, I have this client, he makes $200,000 a month." And I was like, what?
How many hours?
That's a thing.
You're doing the math.
Yeah, you're like,
I'm like doing the math on my calculator because we didn't have phones yet. What are you talking about? I literally did long division I was on a cruise in my cruise room. Like, wait, whoa. And that's when it like really occurred to me that there was more than making $50 an hour. And the other thing that I learned from him was you don't have to trade time for money. And that was a huge concept for me, because every way that I was ever raised was people worked and they got money for going to their job for the number of hours they worked, right? My parents got overtime. If they weren't at work, they didn't get paid necessarily. I came from that mentality. So when I learned that doesn't have to be that way, I was like, oh, now I'm intrigued. Now I'm in. Now I feel snazzy.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's true. I used it in a sentence. I just want you to know that it is a word already.
Yes.
I don't want to take it
Appreciate
away from you. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. You have a special, place in my heart.
Yeah, the whole team was making fun of my brother when he said that this morning.
It's kind of an older word that like older people use. Like, oh, that's so snazzy. Yeah.
It's nasty. So
we're bringing it back.
Yeah, we're actually, the word that I think he was trying to say was, you're gonna look all spiffy.
No, it's nasty.
And then he said nasty instead.
Spiffy is the one that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
it was
no.
nasty.
No,
Yeah,
spiffy is a word. Yeah,
you look all spiffy.
Right? So that would be like, I think, a word for a gentleman. It's wearing his hat and he's got his collar dialed in. He's spiffy. But I think snazzy is like next level. Like, I'm kind of jeweled up. I'm really looking good.
Oh, look at that, next level.
See, you're welcome, Fonzie.
Yeah, so you took me from down here to up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You introduced me to a whole new reality right there.
I'm all about elevating people. You're saying.
Yes, we will elevate your vocabulary in a way that you do not even know.
10-year alert, people. Control yourself. Settle. All right. So, Jana, please continue. So, what's possible, right? Like, you was like, eyes wide open. You're like, okay, so like, what next after that moment? Like, what do you do?
So after that moment, I go back home. I'm in San Francisco, which is where I was going to school. And I was like, screw this job. I'm literally working at the hospital. I worked in labor and delivery, which I really loved, but I was working these crazy hours and then getting up and going to school, and I was miserable. And so I kept in touch with this guy that I met. We ended up dating, which was kind of amazing. And he was a real estate broker. And he says to me, if you do one loan a month and I'll teach you how to do it, you'll make more than you are making working full-time at the hospital. And I'm like, well, okay. So, right. I mean, I don't know anything about loans. I don't know anything about getting a loan. I don't know about mortgages. Remember, I'm 18. I don't know anything. So we go through this whole thing and he's like, I'm going to set you up with this lady. And I feel so bad for her. I mean, honestly, she must have been like, God damn it. Great. Here's my girlfriend. Teach her how to do this career. And she was like, okay. But I literally was her, we'll call it assistant.
Guinea pig.
No, more like everything she didn't want to do. That was my job.
You were just following him around, picking up the scraps and learning as you go.
Hey, I have a question. Right. And then at the time we were like faxing, everything was on fax. And so I would sit with like stacks of papers and fax them one page at a time. It was awful. And I thought, oh, what am I doing? But then I got my first transaction and I think I worked on it for maybe, 6-7 hours. And I got a check for $5,000. And I was like, okay, all right, I get it. Okay, here I am.
Yeah.
So I stuck with her for a long time. I mean, at that time, a long time, like a year of really like trying to learn. And all the time I would put myself out there. I didn't know anything. And I would literally be like, oh yeah, I do mortgages. I learned about this because I had a whole team behind me that knew what the heck to do. And what I found was that by the relationships that I made with everyone that I spoke with, and I wasn't salesy about it. I wasn't like, hey, do you want to do a loan with me? It was more like I really was passionate about learning how to help people. And I talked about it a lot. Yeah. And making those connections broadened my web, right, of people that I knew. And then from there, I started making relationships, doing all kinds of things. And some of them led back to me doing loans for them. Some of them led down other paths, but all of them led down opportunity paths for me. And for whoever I could connect people to get down their own opportunity path. And all of that together comprised this amazing beginning for me that created a safety net that I could launch from. It was really a cool experience.
Wow. That does, there's, I love the story. First of all, I love the whole evolution from, what you know, and that knowledge, was pretty much capping your possibilities.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody just opened that door of opportunities and new possibilities. And you're like, wow, look at what I can achieve. And I'm going to relate that to podcasting or having your own platform, not necessarily podcasting, and bringing in people with different opinion, different experiences. That has something that has opened our eyes, has been conversations with people extremely successful, 3, 4, 5, even more levels above of what we think it is possible. And then when they share their stories and how successful they are, we're like, whoa, that is absolutely amazing. Why are we pretty much like capping our own growth? I'm sure we can do this. So I love that.
Everything. That feeling, right? That feeling of capping ourselves comes from our lived experience, right? It comes from who we know and what we've seen and what we've been exposed to. And remember, like as time has gone on, our ability to look and see the world in a different way has changed, right? So I'm 41. And so when I was coming up at 18, 19, it's the late 90s. And it's just now starting this whole .com boom, they called it, right? The internet is the thing. I had AOL, right? AOL email, all of that was just coming into fruition. We were using fax machines. We still relied on a typewriter at work. I had to manually copy things. It was a different time of sharing information. The way we got news, the way we got exposure and education was very different compared to now, right? So now we have the internet and it feels like, and I know a lot of people struggle in this, where it feels like you either are a Kardashian or you're crap. Like there's not a middle ground here for the world. And we aspire to this super rich, this ultra rich, this athlete, the Ferrari, the material items because we're very visual. But what we forget is that there's this entire space of success in the middle that really dictates who and what we become and how we're going to get there. And you don't typically go from I'm struggling to make my rent and eat to I'm a Kardashian. That's not a linear journey. That's a very gradual process unless somebody dumps money, a family money or something like that, right?
Yeah, or a 6 year kind of like goes out.
Hey, did I ever tell you, Luis, that my first assistant was from Caracas?
You did mention something about Caracas. I don't remember. I think it was not that.
My first assistant, and she was bellissima. She was perfect. Yeah, she spoke in Spanish so quickly, though. I had to learn how to listen faster. I would always tell me, I'd be like, what? And she goes, learn to listen faster. Here we go.
I learned to listen.
It was amazing. I'm like,
okay. Pretty fast.
So fast.
That's what I have to do, Katie. Learn to listen fast.
Yeah.
I'll guess
anyway.
Yeah. Was she crazy? Because Venezuelan women are crazy. They're beautiful, but they're crazy.
She was not crazy, but she was always doing the funniest stuff. The thing that I loved about her was that she was super helpful. What I didn't love about her was that, like, I'd just say on a cell phone, she'd be like cleaning my cell phone and organizing my pens. And she'd be like getting me water and like brushing everything off and dusting. I'm like, okay, like we're good. Like,
where's she now? Where's she now? Can we hire her? We're like,
she's
please.
In Florida. Just kidding. I think she's back in Venezuela, actually. I haven't talked to her in a long time.
Yeah.
But she was
small world. That's awesome. I'm glad you had a great experience. We obviously it's funny. Like our entire team is Venezuelan by chance.
Yeah.
By chance. Like and we feel very proud of that. Like it's a really good connection. We were very disconnected from our country for a long time.
Yeah. And I'm gonna put a pin right here because I would love to go into kind of like that feeling of giving back and building some sort of community, because I know you're pretty big on that and you got some projects in there.
That's my jam.
Before going there, though, I'm opening a loop in here for the listeners so they tune in for longer for the whole episode, of course. You talked about this spectrum of success, right? Like whether you feel like crap or you feel like a Kardashian. I don't know. That's a cool comparison right there. But, like what does it look like in the middle? Like, why? Because you said you had to learn the access to information was very different back then, right? That what it is right now. Yeah. And immediately my mind went to, we grew up in a household that, my mom had a job and my dad was, kind of like on and off from jobs.
Yeah.
And that's that was a reference. It's like, okay, cool. Like this is how success looks. Then obviously, as we started, diving into the internet and social media, and now you get ads of like, hey, become, a successful entrepreneur. And now you see it. Like you see a lot of kids wanting to start their own business, wanting to be entrepreneurs. Literally, we say entrepreneurs are the new rappers, right? Like people just want to be entrepreneurs left and right. And that's because the access to information of it is it's out there. Is so accessible. Now, let's be honest, like not everybody's gonna be able to build a 7, 8, 9-figure business, right? Like I don't remember the stats. You probably know this better, but it's like 5% of the businesses that start like actually make it to 7 figures, something like that.
I don't know off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I thought you would know
You
that
just
one.
threw me under the bus.
But you know, only a small percentage make it to certain levels of success. That doesn't mean that the ones that are at level below are not successful, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious on like how does somebody doesn't fall for, if I'm not at 7, 8 figures, I'm not successful, right? And they can stay motivated and putting out good work into the world, right? And building something that is going to help a lot of people, you know, without falling in this, let's call it social media trap.
Here's some stats by Small Business Genius, right? 9% of small businesses made more than $1 million a year in 2018. This is 2018, but probably similar, right? The most profitable small businesses made over 1 million last year, while the least profitable 16% made less than $10,000. So yeah, it's definitely
it's a hard road.
I think it's also like where the data is being drawn from, right? Because if you look on the internet, and I mean, I'm really passionate about this topic.
Let's go.
Let's dive in.
It is bullshit what is on there. It is bullshit. So you see all these people and they're, I have the way. I have the secret sauce. I know what to do. No, you don't. You don't know what to do. You're running Facebook ads. They're running Facebook ads. Everyone's running Facebook ads and Instagram ads and whatever other kind of ads, whatever's happening I'm going to sell you my secret sauce. It's the same as like trying to lose weight, right? What works for you or works for me might not work for somebody else. Who knows? You don't know what their circumstances are, where they're coming from. You don't know what their education level is. And no matter what people say that doesn't matter, it freaking matters. Where we begin from and how far we have to go and what our definition of success looks like matters, right? So if you're aspiring that I only can be a professional athlete, that's it. If I'm not a professional athlete, then I am crap. Then that's on you, right? Because what if you are an amazing collegiate athlete? And what if you play D3 soccer? Does that make you a loser because you didn't play D1 and then go to the World Cup? Probably not, right? And the same is true for every other thing where we have to really take into account what's real. The reality is that most people are not going to become D1 athletes. And those D1 athletes, most of them are not going to become professional athletes. Do the numbers. There's trillions of people in the world. How many professional athletes are there? Not that many, right? So when we talk about success, I think the big thing is to stop the comparison of what is successful to me and what is successful to you, because those might be very different numbers. And that success may come in various ways over time. So for me right now, at this age, at this stage in my life, my definition of success is making enough money so that I can live the life that I want to live and I can be present with my kids. Okay, that might not be yours, right? And I'm okay. It's taken me time for sure, especially in comparison to like my male counterparts that may have not stopped their career to have their babies and stay home with them. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But I look at people I started with that just kept going, right? They never had to take a break or never chose to take a break. I did. And if I compare myself to their level of success, of course I'm going to fall short. I'm using a different measuring stick. I'm using a different metric to measure that success, right? So I think that's the big piece is how we measure and what we're measuring.
Yeah, 100%. I love this, right? And we've talked about this type of perspective in previous episodes. We had to do an exercise a few months ago on the show, right? We were questioning the show. We were like, okay, we love because of the personal journey, the growth and the connections, the relationships, right? But on the business side, we were struggling at the time to see the connection, right? How is this actually creating revenue for us? And we had to go do an inventory of the people and the relationships and what was the follow-up. Like we did like this whole thing, and everything that we were doing at the time was coming from the show or a relationship from the show. And we're like, okay, that's the connection. That's the link, right? And you just mentioned an example on collegiate soccer. You know, we both play collegiate soccer, right? Like I personally played D1, and I remember that I think it was like one of the initial days. They shared the stat with us, like on the initial meetings. And I'm trying to look at the data, but what I found by NCSA Sports is 1.1% of high school men's soccer players make it to D1, and that's
Mhm.
an American, like that's high school from the United States. We both came from Venezuela, from a different country. So
Yeah.
probably an even smaller percentage of this. And I remember by listening that stat, I was like, wow, I really feel good. Like this is a success on its own. And then we can continue to grow like this. And that to me, obviously, that's massive, right? But then it's like, how do we actually apply this into the business? And sometimes we think in the business or our personal journeys as well that we're not enough. We're not doing enough or
Yeah.
XYZ, right? And then we go look at that and we see the journey, right? Like, and as you were explaining this, you mentioned something like that really resonated. It was where we start in our business journey matters, right? And it's like, okay, if for example, for us, right, if I want to succeed as a businessman in United States, we're foreign. We're from Venezuela. We came from a non-entrepreneurial family. Like that journey to get here. And then from here, which most people start like already from here, what are the next steps? So it does matter. So, right, like that's fuel to continue. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's how we should tackle it, right? Like, so thank you for bringing that up. And I highly encourage everybody to go and explore that, right? Like, where did you start? Like, are you from a different country? Are you from like this family? Like some people start ahead of you for whatever reason. They have investment. They don't have to bootstrap the heck out of this business, right? Like the first 5 years were like bootstrap like crazy, and it still is, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say still is.
So thank you for bringing that up, and I think
Yeah.
it's such an important thing on like how that will frame your definition of successful.
So
I love it.
I'm pretty.
For sure.
This is something I heard. It was you need to understand who you are, right, and find your own how, right? Like my brother said, we've talked about finding your own how, and I'm reading here one of the things you shared with us, and it was choosing myself and choosing to do the work that has been necessary to heal, grow, change, and develop into who I am becoming, and that encompasses pretty much finding who you are, and again bringing it back to the social media world where it's a world of comparison. I feel like people are struggling to find out who they are and then therefore finding their definition of success, which is potentially stopping them from living a happier life. So I'm curious on your own experience, how did you find who you are and what was that definition of success for you, right? Like what were some of the things that you went through?
Yeah, for sure. So when I started my career, social media wasn't a thing, right? So here's what I know. When I was growing up, I was always the funny one, right? Like there's an expectation, you're the funny one. You're the extrovert. You're the this, you're the that, right? And your parents do that to you, right? Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but you're this. And they put you in a container of what you are. And we believe those things to be true because our parents told us so. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I have to live up to this way of being funny and being an extrovert. So as I journey through my life of being funny and extroverted, I realize I'm really kind of unhappy, right? Like what is this? And I had to really take responsibility for my own growth and my own identity because I had to stop leaving it for somebody else to tell me what I was. And that's the truth now with social media, where we are seeing all these examples of what we could be, the outfits we could wear, the way our houses could look. All of those things are lending to this idea of which box do you fit into? And I think, honestly, when I had kids and people were telling me the kind of mother I needed to be and the kind of, I had twins the first time. Let me tell you about all the advice you get. Like I can't even tell you, you should this, you should that, yada, yada, yada. I finally was so freaking irritated by that. I was like, I'm going to show up exactly how I am meant to show up. I am meant to be, I think for lack of a better word, I was designed to be their mom, exactly as I am. And I had to really dig into myself and just say to myself on repeat that exactly as I am enough. exactly as I show up, however that is, whether that is an extrovert or funny or sad or depressed or, whatever it is, that's who I am. And that is enough. And from that place, it was easy for me to then start identifying with what felt good to me, of what felt measurable in a way of where I was headed. Because I'm never, ever going to be you. And you're never going to be me. And we are never going to have an even playing field, whether I was from Caracas or if I was from Medellin. It doesn't matter. Like we don't have the same playing field because we're coming from different places. Yeah. And it turns out I'm outgoing, but I'm actually an introvert. And it turns out I'm funny sometimes, but a lot of the times I'm really a more compassionate person. I'm not as funny, right? I'm more funny when I'm in an element where I feel less comfortable. So it's an interesting evolution of accepting myself and then saying, all right, here's what I'm going to do next from that.
This resonates so much in many ways, right? Like, so, and we have this conversation often, right? Because like in my personal point of view is we produce content, like let's bring it to content because that's what we do, right? That's our thing. We produce content in a very specific way, and we're obviously continuing to learn and see what's out there, right? But to me, consistency is top priority, right? If we don't execute consistently, nothing else matters. So to that, I gotta bring it down sometimes to like, okay, what's the level that maybe we as a company or me as an individual guy can be consistent, right? And sometimes that doesn't meet that expectation, and I'm okay with that because it's keeping me consistent and it's been providing opportunities, right? So it comes down to your own decision. Now, when we share this, and Fonzie probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you probably have a similar, we've talked about this. He has sometimes a different point of view on like what type of content we should be creating as a show, for example, right? And that's a back and forth that we have. And that's okay. That's very healthy.
Is the right opinion, but all right, move on.
And that's really, and that's healthy, right? Because that's how we grow, right?
Yeah.
But I find often that you found who you need to be, like in your mother example, right? These people are telling you should do this, you should do that, and you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna be me, right? And I relate because as a parent, like same thing. As soon as we announced that Luca was being born, I was working in a fitness studio, and oh boy, every single person, we have about 1,000 members. Every single person knew that we were having that kid, and they were like, "Oh, you should do this." And I'm like, guys, I'm not asking for any advice. I'm just like telling you that I'm having a kid. Like, thank you though. Like, not listening. And it came out of that place of, this is who I am. This is what Katie is. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, and if we need help, we'll reach out. But there's the other way. Do you think people like to be told what to do in general, right? Like, because you are wired very different than most people. Like, and I feel like we are wired in a very similar way. But also, here's a reaction I get. Like, and I was picturing this scenario. Like, we went to a conference or we've been in conference, and sometimes people ask us like, what to do in this scenario, right? And we're like, well, what feels right to you? And they're like, that's not what I want to. That's not the thing I'm asking. And they get frustrated, right? And so this is where this is coming from. Like, you identify that you want to show up in a certain way, and you made that decision to show up in that certain way. But in a general sense, and bring that to money, right? Same thing, right? Do you think people like to be told what to do? Maybe that's what Katie, for example, she loves her job, right? And she doesn't want to be an entrepreneur ever. She's like, I don't understand what you do, but she loves what she does. So in a general sense, right? Like, as a coach, for example, right? Like, you're about to, like, you're helping so many people, like, through the work that you do. And now with the podcast, it's going to be amazing. But like, do you think people like to be told what to do? And like, how does that relate to like business? Somebody that's wanting to create that business and is facing that challenge. How do they go over that hump?
Well, I think that it's an interesting thing. I never had thought of myself as an entrepreneur, which is funny, ever. I mean, I've heard about them, but I didn't really identify as one. And then I realize now I've been starting businesses since I was a kid. I mean, I had a greeting card business, and I had a lemonade business, and I had a babysitting business, and I had a house cleaning business. I've gone through a lot of stages of business. And when I learned how to do loans, I was like, well, screw this. I'm not going to work for someone else. I'm going to start my own business. So here I am, 21 in San Francisco, starting a business. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was, I mean, whatever. And it worked out, and it made money, and that was awesome. And I've done that a couple of times, and that's great. what's interesting is that people want to be told what to do because they don't want to do the work most of the time. And this is a really good example for you guys. I want to start a podcast because I want to educate people about money. I want people to start understanding that our relationship with money starts at a young age, and we have power to help empower our kids. And we also have the ability, no matter where we are, to make change and to evoke change. And that happens with education. We cannot do something different if we don't know. Just like I wouldn't have known I could make $200,000 a month, or that $50 an hour wasn't like the most amount of money that anyone could ever have, because I was educated, I was exposed. And so I came to you and I said, I want to start a podcast. Tell me what to do. I don't want to go and figure all the crap out on my own. Just tell me.
By the way, that this was not from that conversation. Just so you know, like full disclosure, it was because of that. Because I think there's two roads, right? Like, and yes. I'll let you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But don't tell me how to wash a dish, and don't tell me what I should be doing next, and don't tell me how to parent my kids. But if I come to you and say, tell me, show me, right? People come to me because they are like, usually I'm screwed. What do I do? I taught a class last night on kids and money. We call it Financially Fit Kids. And we were talking about money mindset and exposing kids at a really early time. And parents are like, just tell me what to do. What do I say to my kids to not mess them up, right? We're all afraid of messing up our kids. The same is true of starting a business, where somebody comes to me, how do you buy a house? How do you get your finances in order? How do I start investing? Then they want to be told what to do. But just overall being told what to do,
it has to start like from within, right? You're like,
oh yeah,
I want you to tell me how to do this thing. But if people come from the outside and they're not asking that quite, like if they're not
asking for it,
they're not asking for it,
there's just going to be a
and
resistance at the time of actually taking in the advice. I'm curious, what is the age cap for the financial for kids? Is it 29-year-old by any chance?
Funny you should ask. Just kidding. So honestly, like, we have been kind of playing with it a little bit, because what we hear in our adult clients that we actually coach, what we hear is, I wish I would have started this younger. What we've been experimenting with is, how much younger? Where did the messaging need to come from? And at what point? So Luis and I have talked about this before, where you get told enough times as a kid, we don't have enough money, we can't afford that. How could you ask me for that? Our parents are dumping their financial position on us. They've now limited us to what we can ask for, what we can think, how we should feel for asking. Should we be ashamed for wanting it? If you go, like, even today, I think this, I could be wrong, but my parents, if they watch this, sorry if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. If I were to roll up to my parents' house in a Ferrari, they'd be like, what are you doing? Right? Like, they would have judgment over how I spend my money that has nothing to do with them. Right?
Until you give them a ride and go from 0 to 60.
They would probably be like, what are you even thinking? Like, this is ridiculous. Right? Do you know your dad can't get in the car and out of the car like that? Whatever. You should have bought a Porsche. Whatever the case is, our parents give us these gifts, if you will, of deciding how we should feel. And then we inadvertently, we take them with us, right? And that goes back to that, what is possible. And then not only what is possible, now how do I behave and how do I interact with my money? And that comes, they at like age 3 is when that starts. So if I ask my parents and I say, oh, I want to have candy, and the answer to my question is not right now, that's a different thing, is we don't have enough money for that. And if I ask my parents, I remember asking for Guess jeans. That was like a very big thing when I was like 10, Guess jeans. And they were stonewashed and they were awesome. And they had zippers on the bottom and they were like the thing. And my mom looks at me and she's like, what? We absolutely not. We cannot afford that. And then she felt bad. I remember her feeling badly because she could not afford to get me Guess jeans. And it turns out I ended up getting Guess jeans. But I knew when I got those that was a huge undertaking for her. I don't know what she had to do to get them. I know that it was a very big deal. And those feelings of what comes with wanting things or aspiring for things stick with us from childhood. right? That's a big change.
A
It's a
hundred-
big,
Absolutely.
100%. Our dad used to do that with.
Yeah. Let
with
me share something here real quick. Whoa.
with soccer cleats. It was the same thing. We're like, we want those cleats, like that's the thing. And it was a whole weekend walking around the city trying to find that, like
Yeah.
the cheaper version, and we never found the cheaper version. We always have to go back. So I'm like, in my mind, I was like, why do we lose in 2 days to go get the same shoes?
Yeah. It's
there's a
crazy.
mentality in him.
Yeah.
Right? Like he learned that. Your dad learned that and was coming from a place of, okay, I want to save money and I want to teach my kids that we don't just go arbitrarily and buy all the things, right? That came from somewhere. And whether that was a place of lack or a place of discipline or wherever that comes from, that's a thing. I have a father-in-law who does that. He will spend days and days and days looking for a better deal. So when he takes into this fact that he saved $150, he's not taking into account the time, the gas, the amount of frustration, the other opportunities he's foregone because he saved $150. That lights people up in a way because of how they were raised, right? That's like a kudos to you. I don't feel that way, but it's taken time to get to not to feel that way.
Absolutely. I found it crazy. Yesterday, I was having a beer with a really good friend, and we were literally talking about all these topics that we've hit today, about surrounding yourself with the right people. We started talking about money, and I was sharing with him that I feel that I have a lot of this gifts, right? How you're calling them, in my life because of, and again, disclaimer, I love you, Dad. But because of our dad, mainly, right? I started realizing that we grew up around a scarcity mindset, right? He was always, like my brother said, trying to save money here. And maybe I didn't notice it growing up as much because I'm younger than my brother. But now looking back at it, I'm like 100% totally, right? And, I remember I used to hold on to things. I was like, no, I don't want to spend this in here because I gotta save the money. And then I have friends telling me like, oh man, you're so selfish, right? And I grew up thinking that I was a little bit selfish. And now, part of the things that I love is I wanna, if I go out to dinner with somebody that I care for, I wanna invite them. I wanna pay for them and all that stuff. And part of it, I think, is to make up for how much I was being called selfish back then. Right?
Just long story short, our accountant has a lot of questions about the meals.
Right.
Why
Do you really spend this much on entertaining people?
Yeah, I just go to a coffee shop. It's like coffee on me, everybody.
It's like $150 worth of coffee.
But
yesterday, why?
But there's a lot of shame in that. And actually, yesterday I had a call with somebody that's pretty important in our life right now, and there was a conversation around money, and I still feel in a way awkward talking about money, right? And he's like, man, I feel like so much shame around this topic, right? And I was almost like in tears. I was like, yeah, bro, because there is, like it is awkward for me, and I recognize now that it was because I grew up in that environment, right? And I have these perceptions about money and how it should be, but then, bringing it back to our first conversation, I meet people that operate differently and are very successful, and they have lives that I'm like, I would love to experience those things, right? And they have a totally different mindset. So I'm like, whoa, again, I love you, Dad. And this is what I told my friend yesterday. I was like, I love my dad, but I'm in certain things, I'm not going to take advice from him because, like I can see where that advice took him, right?
Yeah.
And I see the advice from people that are extremely successful in that field that I want advice from. And now I'm going and asking for advice to those people in there. So that being said, I'm extremely curious for you, and now diving a little bit more into the money side of things, but like, how was that shift in your mindset, right? How once you got presented with opportunities of making more than $50 an hour, that you were like, look at these opportunities. How was your relationship with money at that time? And then was there a moment that it shifted, that it needed to change, right? Or was it always positive from the start?
No, it was not really positive from the start.
Please go watch the video. If you're listening, go watch the video to see the face of Jana she just made.
It's
Minute
funny to
44.
think. It's funny to think about that, right? Because I think, you guys podcast and this is so easy for you and or seemingly, right? And for me, I talk about money all the time and I've been talking about money for 25 years. So it feels very comfortable to me, but not about my own money, not about my own money with my own people. It's a very different audience when you're talking to strangers. When I'm talking to you guys, we could talk about all the things. But do I want to talk to my parents about how I have out-earned them exponentially? Does that feel good to me? No. It feels terrible to me. It feels terrible to me, the idea of making a person in my life who never did the same things that I did and I have more than. I struggle with those feelings all the time. And I actually feel, and I imagine that there's many people that feel this way, almost a sense of shame. Like I kind of try to play my life down so that I don't make other people feel bad. And I'm not saying that to sound conceited, like I'm so amazing, I'm Kardashian style and I have billions of dollars and you guys have nothing at all. I'm saying that wherever we are in our path, when we pass people in a financial way, it feels a little bit weird because you don't want to be like, oh, I'll pay for that, and then take away their dignity. And then you also don't want to be like, I'm not going to pay for that. And they're struggling to pay, right? There's this interesting juxtaposition of emotion there. So when we talk about money and we talk about where we come from and how we start those conversations, that's the key. It starts in ourselves about how do we feel around what we want and what are we going to hold on to from our childhoods and what are we going to take with us? Which gifts of childhood do we take with us? And which do we say, you know what, that was for them, that's not for me. And that's a conscious decision. I always say that speaking about money is not a passive sport. It is something that you have to do with intention. And that's hard. It's hard to talk about money. And it's hard even in situations like this. So I have a mortgage company and people come in and I'm going to run credit. And they're sitting at my desk and immediately I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to run credit. Here we go. Okay, well, there's this one time that I paid my gas bill late, and then I think I might have had a credit card, and I think I might have charged something on Nordstrom, but I'm going to pay that off. And like this whole rhetoric starts because they have all this anxiety of judgment about debt. And then here we go with the income. How much do you make? Well, I make, let's just say $100,000 a year, but I would be making more. But if I could make more, but doing this, but then this thing happened and then I couldn't. And then this guy got the raise. And then I end up in these weird conversations because people are terrified about that judgment about what they have or they don't have.
Yeah.
And so then they stop the conversation
immediately.
Yes, they limit.
Can I share a story I had in a bank recently that maybe illustrates a little bit? And by the way, are we good in time? Because like this conversation is so good. Are we good? Yeah, we have some minutes. Okay. So to start BIZBROS, like to go full time in this in 2019, I took a personal loan. Probably right now, smartest decision probably I've made because it's made me so happy. But on that side, it's been really hard to go out and pay that debt, especially the first couple of years, right? So we have systems in place now, and it's moving forward. Now, my Jeep is my pride and joy. I love that car. It's my thing. I love it. Last year was a really hard, difficult year for us, and it got to the point that I was behind like almost 2 months on my Jeep payment. And I actually got a call from the bank, and they're like, "Hey, by the way, this is the first time I share this story." Exclusive. Bam, 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 bam.
Oh, wrong button.
Come on, FONZI is exclusive. Okay. And I get the call, and this lady, she was pissed, angry. He's like, "Why haven't you paid the thing?" And I'm like, "Look, like I actually had to go out and get a job. Like this is my situation. Let me explain it to you. Why didn't you call me before?" And I'm like, "Well, I've been kind of busy, kind of trying to figure out the payment thing." But anyway, so she was super angry. So anyways, I talked to her, we figure out, we, do the payments, but the tow truck was going out and I had the wrong address in the thing, and they were going to find the Jeep in my old apartment. And I'm like, and she's like, "Do you want to update your address?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." And so anyways, I come back, right? And I tell Katie, I'm like, "Look, like this happened, right?" Like, and she's so understanding, right? And it's working, things are moving forward now. I'm able to, I'm going to catch up. I'm good. And she was like, why don't we just go and refinance your car, right? Let's put it under my name. And then we leave that pressure off of you for a couple months, right? For a few months. So we go to the bank, we go to credit union, and my credit is in the ground right now. We're working to move it back up because all these issues, right?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I need to acknowledge, what's the truth? Like, we have to acknowledge that thing is happening to be able to fix it, right? And for the longest time, I did not acknowledge it, and that was part of the issue. So finally, acknowledge it. We go to the bank. We have it. We're sitting down with this gentleman, right? And Katie at the moment had a little bit more stable situation. She's a pharmacist, right? So we go in, and she's like, "Hey, how much is your credit?" And I'm like, here's how you run it and whatever. And he looked at the credit, and then he looked at me, and like, he was surprised that it was that low. And that was a moment where a year earlier, I would have been so ashamed to even like go and tackle. But I felt so calm because I acknowledged it. I'm not okay. I'm like, whatever happens. Like, I cannot do anything about that situation right now. And we're working to fix it. Right. So I'm like, that it is what it is. Tell me the rates. Like, what's this going to be? Like, and then, Katie came in and everything worked out, and it was fixed. The problem was fixed. But I tell that story because I relate to those people. Like, I've been there, and I feel like that is very common nowadays. And it sucks that it has to feel that way, right? Like, why there's so much judgment around that. And with that, like, also in the business side, like, that translates into many other. And the people that we talk to on the show, right, is people that are starting their businesses. Maybe they have issues, right? Maybe they have bills to pay. Maybe they're trying to be an entrepreneur, but they have a side gig, and they're hiding the side gig because they really want to be like that full-time entrepreneur. That's the dream, right? And by the way, that was us too, 100%, right? And it's okay. You could be working on your thing, and then you could have a side gig on the side, like, to finance that thing. That's totally okay. That's part of the journey. So I really wanted to share that because, like, I feel it, and I appreciate that there's people like you that can start this conversation, right? Like, so how do we start acknowledging that? For me, it was like a moment, we call it like the screw it moment. It was like,
you call it the screw it moment.
I call it the screw it moment. But it was like, it was legit that. It was like one day I woke up and like, screw it, whatever. Like, there's nothing else I can do. I am going to face this. I acknowledge it. I'm working to fix it, right? And then all of a sudden, like, stop. But is there a way that you help people kind of go through that decision?
It's like mostly what we do, honestly. It takes a really brave person anytime to say, I want some help with something, right? Especially if it's something that they're not where they want to be. So it's one thing if I am going to go meet with a coach because I am an amazing athlete and I want to knock my 4-minute mile down to 3.5 minutes. I'm going to get a coach. I'm already a badass. I'm going to get a coach. That is not where the bravery comes from. The bravery comes from looking at ourselves and being like, well, shit, that didn't work out. Bummer. That comes from that I tried to start a business and I made a mistake, or I made a series of mistakes, and now my business is done. What did I learn? And do I have the courage to start again? It comes from all of those things where you can look at yourself and stop. Like, I always like to tell people it's like a backpack, like filled with shame about stuff. It's like so heavy to hide behind, like we were talking about earlier, this image, right? The image is that I am these things and I'm amazing and I am super successful and whatever. Mm-hmm. When we have that image to uphold and the shit hits the fan and things don't feel great, and we start putting them in our backpack, pretty soon, we're like really weighed down, and you can't do anything when you're weighed down. You can't move forward when you're weighed down. But as soon as you unpack your backpack and you're like, all right, I'm embarrassed about this and I'm ashamed of that, and I did this thing and whatever, when you can let that shit go and you can say, all right, here's the deal. I'm human. I did this. This didn't work like I thought. Now I'm going to do this. And you can face that without feeling ashamed of it. That's when you get to start growing. That's when you get to start changing. And that's when you get to enter into the conversation. Because if I don't go to the doctor, if I'm sick and I don't go to the doctor, guess what? I'm staying sick. And if I decide that it's time to change my behavior, my relationship, my credit score, my debt situation with money, if I don't enter into the conversation to do that, I'm never going to do anything. It's going to stay exactly as it was, and it's going to get worse. So I think the bravery is what it takes to make those conversations happen. And the humility, and that, like we were talking about earlier, that feeling of enoughness. I'm not defined by how much money I do or I don't have. I'm not defined by my debt. I'm not defined by any of these things. I'm defined by what I choose to be defined by. And I am enough because I'm enough. That's it. And if you can always remind yourself that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, wherever you are in relationship to yourself is what matters. It's not where you are in relationship to somebody else. As long as you can have and handle the crap that you need to do, it's all that matters.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, this has been so fun. We have a couple questions, like 2 last questions, unless Fonzie has something else that do you want to add to this reflection?
I just want to, first, thank you, because all this has been extremely amazing. And I know we didn't get to like anything like tactical and all and whatnot, but I think this is the most important part, which is, kind of like push people for them to look inside and recognize their own circumstances and situation. And then from there, like we talk, figuring out your own how, making your own decisions. But what would be maybe, for entrepreneurs or people that might be starting their business right now, what are some good measures or some good things to do around money to protect themselves from, pretty negative situations?
I think I'm answering your question, what you're intending. I think the thing that we have to do about everything, especially as it relates to money, is we have to take responsibility for it. We have to be in charge all the time of what's happening with our financial situation. So, for example, I have this mortgage business, and there's a lot of people in our business that everything is terrible right now. Oh my gosh, the interest rates are so high. The clients are terrible, blah, 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 because they're putting it on somebody else to measure their success, right? I can't do me because all of this is happening. If we want to avoid getting into a big financial conundrum, we have to take responsibility that regardless of what's happening around me, I'm in charge of how this is going to look. I'm in charge of my behavior. I'm in charge of what I buy. I'm in charge of what I spend, how I save, how I don't save, what I earn. And that idea of people, not wanting to show the whole journey. When I started in mortgage all those years ago, I still worked at the hospital. I still worked at the hospital till I knew I was making enough money to make my rent. That was a long time. I worked 2 jobs. People don't want to do that work, right? It's really a hard thing to say, I'm not number 1, I'm number something. That's a hard thing for people to acknowledge. And as soon as we can start doing that, it takes all this pressure off so that we don't make the same mistakes. So we're not trying to live that life. I think Susie Orman says that so many people spend all kinds of money they don't have to impress people they don't even like anyway. And if you look around, that's what's happening all the time. And it leads to a significant demise in people's businesses, right?
Yeah, and
spending what they don't have.
And it's exponential now, right? With social media and like the impression that people want to just put out into the world, right?
They want to be the Kardashians.
I just read yesterday in our area, like to a pastor and the wife in debt, $750,000. The bank is trying to collect it. They don't have the cash, and they run this church. And you're like, what? Like, how? Like, how do you get in that position?
You will say that to yourself so many times, but those hows are just a series of tiny decisions that people make that go do down. But you have an option. We have an option. Every single one of us, no matter where we are in our financial journey, we could be in a ton of debt. We could be rolling right now. It doesn't matter. Wherever we are, we have decisions to make. And making no decision is probably the biggest decision that people make. I'm not going to do anything because I'm terrified. That's a decision. That's an action item that you just did by ignoring things. So if we can accept the responsibility that we're in control, and we can accept the idea that these small actions are what lead to these huge results, it seems like that's not possible when people are sitting in $700,000 of debt. But paying off $50 of that is better than paying off $0. Right? Paying off $1,000 on your $20,000 credit card is better than paying off $0 and getting the late fees or going the other direction, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that seems like that's always the biggest thing with businesses and with people's mindset is I'm either making $1 million or I'm making nothing. There's nothing there when it's perfectly noble to make whatever it is in relationship to what you're doing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's two phrases that came to mind. One is, that goes hand in hand with what you just mentioned. Your life is a collection of the choices that you make, of the collective choices that you make. And then the
Yes.
other one that came to mind is, I might butcher this one a little bit, but is stress is actually you knowing that you didn't do the things that you had control over. And by not making a choice, right? You said
Yes.
by not making a choice, you're making a choice, right? You're making a choice of not taking action. Therefore, that lack of action induces stress, and then that just builds up, right? And I'm gonna be honest, first one to raise the hand here, like I have, and maybe it's still not maybe, I am still victim of, not a victim, I'm a victim of my own making of that scenario, right? And I'm starting to, okay, what are the things that I need to recognize, that I need to put attention, that I need to take action towards? Because like you said, no action, it is still an action, and it's probably the worst one you can take.
Yeah. Jana, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming. If
Thanks
people
for
want to
having
get tactical, if they want to learn more, if they want to connect with you, like where can they go?
They can follow me on Instagram at Jana Mannina. They can also follow me on Facebook, same. And we have a couple of websites. So we have speakingofmoney.net for financial coaching. And just we have a lot of content we give out on there. And just kind of getting part of our community because we share a ton of stuff and we do a ton of classes and a lot of pay it forward stuff. So that's the best way.
That's
All
so
right.
awesome.
I just realized we left a hook about 30 minutes ago, 40 minutes ago, talking about the things that you were doing for the community to give back. And I know you're very passionate about it. So I of course, want to give you, the time to share about that. So why don't you share a little bit about that? And then how can people learn more about that and maybe potentially help as well?
Okay. So we were talking earlier about our measures of success. And so for some people, that's the Lamborghini. And for some people, that's millions of dollars. And for me, my measure of success, I said, was spending time with my kids, having enough money to do what I wanted. And part of doing what I wanted is I like to give. And when we talk about giving, it's, I think, something that people overlook all the time. I never even knew that was a thing until I got to be an adult and on my own. I don't know that my parents were big donators. I don't think that was a thing. So I started looking for opportunities. So when I didn't have any money, I would donate my time. And then from time, it turned into like time plus a little bit of money. And then now I donate all of those things because I think that give back is where we really get into what this whole life is about. So I feel compelled to teach people, especially underserved people, about their finances. We do that for free all the time. We teach kids that are transitioning out of foster care. We teach kids who are coming up that are in underserved communities about how to kind of get on the financial track as they're going into adulthood. We teach adults who are underserved about how to fix their credit and how to get in themselves into position so that they can start having access. Without having access, it limits us. And unfortunately, the way our system is built around money is you don't have any money and you have bad credit. So we're going to charge you more money because you're a bigger risk and you're going to have less money. We're really unevening that playing field. So I'm really convicted about that because I feel like if we don't start getting people here where they at least know what to do, for example, if your credit is in the toilet right now, I can help you and I know how to do it. Right? You probably don't know how to do it. So those things will enable you to grow your business for less money over time, right? That's what's important. So I have a few things that I do with that. And then I volunteer, like I said, various community organizations, but one is for single moms and their kids. One is for veterans and first responders. And the other one that my kids and I have been working on, which is really fun, we match up. So we call it Cool Kicks for Kids. We match kids in school who don't have any money to go and get shoes that fit them and that are cool, right? They're always like, like this crappy, like Walmart shoes that you feel like crap because everyone else has Air Force Ones. We match the kids With the donor, they get them. They don't even know they're donated. They think they're from their parents, or they just show up to them, and they get to roll in because we know that confident kids learn better. And so we've been working a lot on that.
I love that.
So awesome.
I love that confidence kids learn better. I think that's very powerful in there. And I love the fact that you guys
do it as a family.
Do it as the donor is giving it, but they don't get to know that those shoes are being donated by other people.
It
takes me back to your story, and I think it might be related. Your story with the Guess jeans, that you saw your mom, and then when you finally got them, you're like, I wonder what she had to go through for all this and whatnot. And I'm sure these kids are getting those shoes and they're saying, wow, look at maybe the sacrifice that my parents did for me, to get me this. And yeah, like you said, it just builds up their confidence, and then they get to learn better. I think that's amazing. Great missions they're having in there. Thank you for sharing. How can people, if somebody is interested in helping or, being a part of it, how can they be a part of it?
You can reach out to me anytime on Instagram or Facebook Messenger, and I will respond back with whatever you guys want to do with what my missions are. I mean, I have many, but those 3 are my heart and soul. So anytime.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Jen, anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, thanks so much for having me. It's so fun to be on here with you guys. And I just saw that your shirt says Fly Emirates, and I was like, is that a soccer jersey that you're wearing?
That is soccer
jersey.
It
is the best soccer team in the world.
That is not
Arsenal.
They ended up 5th this season. They're not the best.
They're still the best team in the world.
I feel every bit of that because I'm a Cal Bears fan. And if you just look at any of their major sports records, they break my heart every year. I had to choose a backup team just so I could have something to watch in the post close. So I feel you on 5th place.
This is how bad it is, Jana. Every time his team plays during the week, the whole team is on deck to make sure, like, if the team wins, it's great. It's going to be a very productive day for FONZI. If the team loses, then nobody can text FONZI because they're not going to get an answer back.
Nah, that is a lie. That is a lie. I've made a very conscious effort of detaching my emotions from an outcome that I do not control. I feel my emotions, for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. I rage and I punch the air and, maybe I headbutt some pillows. But then after that, I'm like, cool, why am I going to get mad over something that I do not control?
The cure for that is a nagging wife. I would tell my husband, I'm like, if you're going to be in a bad mood over this is off. I will disconnect cable. We will never watch another game again. You just need a good naggy wife to just seal the deal for you.
I relate. Katie pulled that move on me, and oh boy, it worked. It was like, what did you just do? This was like a magic trick.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I guess that's why I'm single.
I'm single so I can be in a bad mood.
So I can watch the games.
Watch the games without like any consequences. Awesome, guys. Well, with that said, thank you so much for tuning into the Content Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show and at BIZBROS Go in your favorite social media.
That is what's up.
That is what's up. Hashtag snazzy.
That's right. Hashtag snazzy. And Jana here, help you move one step closer towards your goal. Please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Sweet. Jana, we survived. We made it. We're still live, by the way. We have a small tradition. We're going to take a little bit of a selfie.
Yeah.
Selfie time.
Oh, what do you want to do? A selfie?
Yeah.
Yes.
AKA screenshot. I'm sorry. I don't look that nasty.
You're like. Sweet. Awesome. All right. Social media. We'll see you on Friday. Maybe
live from